I was like, like waiting for skin to skin. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, don't wipe the vernix off my baby. And they're like, ma'am, we're trying to get him to breathe. And I was like, oh shit. And my husband was there and he's a chiropractor, and I was just like, punched him. I was like, and he ran over there and just went, boom. And his atlas, he just did the most gentle nudge of his atlas. And then he went.
Where I ask my guests, how did you do it and why?
Now listen, for anybody out there, Jenn, Dorn here, is really nervous about being on the show. She told me that on the way, like, oh my gosh, I'm just so scared about talking to Mark Howley. I mean, I've heard so much about him. I mean, oh my God. And, I just overheard you talking to my daughter. Do you do any work with tongue chiropractic? Are you a chiropractor for the tongue?
A chiropractic encompasses the whole body. And I do work inside the mouth.
Specifically, like rubbing tongues?
So it is a muscle. Yes, it is. And it is controlled by nerve. And so, yeah, it's something you don't really think a lot about. And it's powerful. It's powerful, and it's connected, down like into the throat and into the rest of the body. This thing, like the nerves in our brainstem control it. And so, I work with the neuromuscular skeletal system. And so, yeah, that means everything in the body.
Well, listen, before we get much started, before we get started, or as we get started, I first would like to introduce you. Today, I am speaking with Jennifer Dorn, the founder and CEO of Bodo Chiropractic. And she is a prenatal, and I guess you would refer to it as postnatal, if I have it right, chiropractor. Spent her life at it, or had a passion for it throughout her life. And first, let's just say hello, and just say hello to us there, Jennifer, and kind of say who you are, what you do, and so on.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I'm calling in from Boise, Idaho. Yeah, Dr. Jenn Dorn, and I have a practice, the family practice here, serving the local community with, the whole realm of humans, but we specialize in our niche is pregnancy, birth, and infants / children. But we really, encompass like the whole family. We love getting people connected to their bodies. I own the practice with my husband.
Cool.
And yeah, we started it 10 years ago, and, it was just him and I in the beginning, and now have about 19 employees.
As a guy who had children 31 years ago, and had 5 daughters, I suspect because of their not having any chiropractic work, that is the reason for some of their problems in life. They'll frequently tell me that, like, Dad, why didn't you give us any chiropractic work when we were young? And we're like, well, I don't even know if I knew what a chiropractor was. A kid from outside Philly is like, what? So anyway, back to you and your business.
My back doesn't hurt. I don't need a chiropractor.
Yeah. So go ahead. A little bit of the, just for our audience, just maybe dig deeper a little bit into what you're doing, because I do think it's a cool subject and one that maybe a lot of people aren't aware of.
Absolutely. Myself, I mean, I was not adjusted as an infant, but I experienced it. I was actually shocked myself when I first found out that my chiropractor did babies. I was like, I went to shadow him because I was super interested in chiropractic and that profession. And I had this mom getting the baby out of the car seat. And I was like, you're adjusting the baby? And he's like, yeah, that's like the majority of what I do. And I was like, I had no idea, because, I would go get adjusted and leave. And sure, I would see moms there, but I didn't realize that the actual babies were getting adjusted, because he had like a closed room, and you didn't actually see the other person getting adjusted. And I was just like, mind blown. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, what you think chiropractic cracking, and then you think baby and you're like, oh no, that doesn't go. And so what's important for people to understand is that it's like, again, it's the neuromuscular skeletal system. It's something where, babies in utero, we're taking care of the mom to create the most optimal space and room in their body to build that human. And then the best environment for that child to be born in, i.e. like a balanced pelvis and all the surrounding ligaments and the soft tissue and the viscera that hold the baby and build the baby. We help a lot with that, like positioning for baby to go into the optimal positioning so that the birth can be equal, ideally. And there's a lot of things, outliers that can get in the way of that. But in general, I would say people who experience that, then, bring their baby, your baby is rolled up for 9-10 months, and then, it's contracted on for however long your birth is or your labor. And then they're squeezed gently and beautifully out of a bony pelvis and born into this world. And then, at that moment, they have to breathe, hear, smell, eat, poop, communicate, and digest, all pretty much in one day.
Yeah, snap, get at it.
Yeah, like we're the only actual mammals that don't walk at birth, which I thought was interesting. But for people who, we're the amount of work we're doing is we're just connecting their entire body, unwinding it from that whole process. And, it could be traumatic. It is a stressful process. And we just really connect that baby into their parasympathetic nervous system. They're born into fight or flight, which is their sympathetic nervous system. And so namely the atlas which is the first cervical vertebra, has movement. And again, that's where that brainstem sits. And the amount of pressure we use is about, the amount of pressure you put on a ripe tomato or even on your eyeball. So it's very gentle in just reconnecting their nervous system. I know this is going to be a crazy story, but
we'll
it's
take
one
it.
It's one
bring
that,
it on.
So my child was born, he was cesarean section, sadly, but also just that was his journey. He was 11 pounds. And so he wasn't breathing when he was born. And so I didn't realize that. I was like, what? I was like, like waiting for skin to skin. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, don't wipe the vernix off my baby. And they're like, ma'am, we're trying to get him to breathe. And I was like, oh shit. And my husband was there and he's a chiropractor, and I was just like, punched him. I was like, and he ran over there and just went boom. And his atlas, he just did the most gentle nudge of his atlas, and then he went because the brain.
I hate to interrupt you, and I pardon me for that.
No, please.
His atlas.
Yes.
I'm not familiar with the term.
Sorry. First cervical vertebra. So below the cranium, that's the first vertebra in the neck, and below that sits the brainstem.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was a proud, unbelievable, magical moment where it was just like, oh yeah, that power and that connection from his brain body was interfered with.
Yeah.
And so it was just that.
Oh, I'm so sorry again. I just,
you
hit on a
There's
subject
so
there. Yeah, I know. You've had such a, it's like I kind of have your notes tucked off to the side, so I don't want to get distracted by them. But I was tracing your life, and I'm like, Mamma Mia, you've had quite a lot of stuff. So, but back to the subject of babies. My second daughter, Corrine, was born the same way. Came out not breathing. They called it a floppy baby at the time, which was basically just, came out and all the limbs flopped back. And I had that horror for a moment of being down there, and I watched 5 babies come out. So while I never experienced, obviously, having a baby, I feel like at times I watched it from the side. It was almost, for me as a guy, wildly nerve-wracking and beautiful. It wasn't until a baby was born that I came to believe that something as a higher power was playing a hand in this. This was too imperfect yet beautiful, and that somehow or another, this little, for lack of a better thing, comes out and it's a human, and within instantaneously, I am in love forever. And, you know, that feeling, they say, oh, it's evolutionarily, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, bullshit. This is something ungodly magical. And when Corrine came out that way, that few seconds waiting for that cry felt like an eternity. And when she finally cried, I just burst into tears. You know, because it's such an emotional time, you know, and in an interesting way, my wife, who was recovering from this dramatic, you know, traumatic situation, kind of didn't know yet, you know, because it was so fast that I was down there, you know, on an island, you know, and just feeling like, what am I going to do? Like, what?
Like powerless in a way, but
I'm
also
powerless.
scared.
And what, am I going to have to walk up to my wife and tell her? You know, I mean, how in God's green earth do you do that? But now I did, circling back, and I'll ask you about this. I watched a couple of your, a few YouTube. You have a video on your website, by the way, which is a great website. It's just a great one about your business. And again, why don't you give the website for it? www.
BodoChiro.com. So Bodo is Boise downtown. Chiro.com.
Right on. So anyway, on there, I thought there was a really cool video, and then I searched far and wide for more and more and more, and there's a lot of people with your name, and I didn't know who you were, so I hit one, and I'm like, that can't be the girl that I'm talking to. There's no way. She just, you know, I don't know what she was talking about, like shampoo or something. And I'm like, what? You know, so I finally found a few of yours, and there's some imposters out there claiming they're you. But I found another one with, I guess maybe a little bit of time ago, you and your husband kind of going through, I guess sort of an educational thing about, you know, how you work with babies. And I just thought it was pretty cool because I did not know anything about it. So, do you run into a lot of people who are completely unfamiliar with the practice?
Yeah. You know, I feel like they're like, well, can you talk to me a little bit about the baby thing? Because I'm not quite sure about it. And I'm absolutely. And, you know, you're reminding me that, you know, having even more videos about babies would be helpful for so many people. Yeah. You know, and getting just educating, you know, I feel like we have a fair amount of time to educate our own patients because we see them throughout their pregnancies, ideally. And they see babies coming in and leaving. And then we give them sort of educational material about the importance of it and how gentle, truly gentle it is. And, you know, it's like with chiropractic, we're constantly uneducating people on what they think it is and then re-educating them on like, hey, if you actually think about it, being the process of being born and then being rolled up in a ball, contracted on and coming out, like it's really important to just like get that body reconnected, get them loosened, you know, because they haven't moved. They don't have the musculature, you know, we're holding them in certain positions, and we go through sort of the ergonomics of parenting, you know, on how are you going to hold them? How are you going to nurse them? How are you going to change their diaper? How are you going to wear them? How are you going to hold that car seat?
Yikes.
How are you, you know, like there's so many things that we do over and over and over. I mean, talk about sideline nursing for moms in bed and they just fall asleep like this. And then, you know, or however they're nursing, you know, nursing is a full-time job and it weighs on the body.
Yeah, I know.
So it's just like, there's like the full spectrum of communication. And if you go back to like chiropractic is literally, and you were talking about there's a higher power, right? There's something that is like that you just made a human by having intercourse maybe once. I mean, I'm sure, you know, obviously it takes more. But
my daughter is listening to this. It was immaculate conception. Much like my mother, 8 children, my father never touched her. The thought of it makes me vomit. And it's so funny, and not to embarrass Bridget here or my daughters, but sometimes when they were younger and teens, just to kind of freak them out, I would say, you know, like, Mom and I are going to go out, just watch a movie and make out tonight. It's going to be really cool. And they would be like, just, Dad, that's oh, gross. And I will let any of the daughters who are listening know that none of that crap happened. It just, these children we went to the doctor and we brought a baby into the world, and that's all. And we named her Bridget, and that's about all we did, So
and the same with Esme, right?
Exactly. Oh yeah, Esme. Come on now, for crying out loud. It's my daughter. Jesus Christ, what are we doing here? You're going to spoil it all.
Little reverse psychology.
Yeah, and I imagine you too. Just by looking at you, you look like a Vestal Virgin, and I'll just pursue. I know you're so young and gorgeous. Me over here. What a contrast. You got this young, beautiful, vivacious young lady, and sitting over here, just this old guy talking to you. Boring, horrible.
Please.
So let me ask you: do you deal with any children that are in any way, I don't know what the word would be. I guess handicapped or somehow Special needs. Obviously, special needs by way of their physical structure, as opposed to right now their mental structure.
Absolutely. It's a huge portion of a population that we help. Both just developmental, physical, we help with the developmental milestones in that first year of life. It's like that first year is like where they grow the most. And so there's different things that come up, you just checking those milestones, obviously there's a big range of like, okay, well, first they roll over, then they're going to sit up, and then they're going to crawl, and then they're going to stand up, and then they're going to cruise, and then they're going to walk. And through all that, the very, very, very first thing that we work on is nursing.
Okay. Interesting.
And getting them, I worked with nursing my whole career, but I last year got my lactation certification because I just wanted people to know I knew what I was talking about. And it's a huge passion of mine, to have every child breastfed. Because I think it can change the trajectory of that child's health and life for their entire life. Yeah,
like I know when my mother had 8 of us. Thank God she got to 6th because that was me. I once asked my dad. I said, "My dad, Dad, why do we have so many kids? And not that thank God they did. They had 8 of them, but I said, and he said, well." I listened to that damn Pope about that whole rhythm method crap. He said, and lo and behold, I had all 8 of you. And I'm like,
my Lord.
Yeah. So he was just pretty funny about it. But back then, the 60s, the mom went into the room, right? I guess they put her out. The old man sat outside smoking bogues with his buddies, and then just came home. Whenever it was done, he just came home and we got a baby. And the children were completely unaware of it. Probably my mom was unaware of it. We probably went on, I don't know if we back then even went on a breast. I think we went right to bottles and so on. That's my recollection. But and part of the reason is that's part of my my problem in life. And let me tell you what, it has been extensive, the problem, deep and long. But anyway, back to you. It's enough out of me.
Well, back to that question about like physical needs or, special needs. When you can, we talk a lot about diet as well, and how like the importance of that and how that can change not only the mother's diet while they're nursing, but also that child's diet while they are developing, and, even food sensitivities or allergies, different things. We get into that with our patients, but that combined with that nervous system connection, I mean, going back to like kids, they quote unquote don't have back pain, right? We're not working. I mean, and they can, but we're truly working on, all right, that's like, for example, yesterday I was just watching a kiddo crawl, and I was like, she looks like she's doing great. But then when you have my eyes, you see, okay, that left hip and ilium and sacrum is moving, but then that right one is kind of not, it's stuck. Right. And so, I mean, you think about that child not getting adjusted and that thing being stuck, potentially I mean, that is going to alter again, then how they stand and then how they walk.
Sure.
You know, I work on the toes, I work on the feet. There's some kids, kind of turn a foot out and walk. You work on those.
You work on those little. Oh gosh, here I am stumbling over you again, just because there's so many
Yeah,
intriguing subjects yeah, I know. The little tiny baby toes. You work on those.
Well, the feet are your gateway into your cerebellum to tell you where you are in space. So
okay.
You have 27 bones in your feet, and if those are crunched up and not moving and grooving, then that input into your brain is not going to be 100% on where you are in space.
Okay. Now, what is the likelihood that somebody, mothers must be putting in a lot? Like, are they saying like, oh no, don't do that, or I guess there's sort of an interim period where they have to get comfortable with you and your husband.
Yeah, well, and we have 5 chiropractors, and absolutely, there's we talk them through what we're going to be doing, and it's again like because it's so gentle. I was just like, oh, okay, we're doing this, we're doing a little of this, and okay, well, do you feel that? And sometimes I'll show them, I'm like, do you feel a difference on this side and this side? I'm like, okay, well, at home, let's do this. Or I'll find something and I'll be like, are you maybe on the same side all the time? Because you see how their upper torso is twisted, and I just you just have to educate them through the process. Then yes, there's that trust. But I feel like our reputation and the community, they often they get a referral from another mom. They're like, oh my gosh, they totally helped my baby or whatever. But initially it's just the trust they have with us taking care of them in their pregnancy.
Sure.
And then it's the education piece. It's like, I promise it's super gentle. Oftentimes I'm meeting dad for the first time because I've taken care of mom for maybe 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months. And then, helping them feel comfortable and educating them. And then the videos, it's like, hey, if if somebody's your partner's not comfortable or doesn't understand what we're going to be doing, have them watch the video about what it looks like to adjust the baby.
Yeah. I think as you're speaking, not giving you advice on a marketing thing, but I sold.
Please give me advice.
Listen, I built my own small bag empire out here. A lot of younger people out there, if you aspire to be a bag man, come see me. I'm good at it. We sell under bridges. Generally, we sleep in, just under there. We're just street people trying to sell a bag or two. But anyway, the dynamic of a mother and father must be, I can imagine. Well, I don't shut up, but I could just imagine the just watching the two of them together must be educational. The dynamic.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And then if we see dad, it's often, sometimes dad brings the baby in, it's just every dynamic is different. And it tells, it's telling. I think it's a time when everybody needs a lot of support.
Sure.
On both sides, because dad's going through it too. It's just in a different way. But yeah, it's very telling, just to see if there's support at home or not. And, how we can just educate people.
Yeah.
When you were saying bags, I was in the bag business too.
Yeah, oh my Lord, now we spin into a whole nother subject matter. And, it's part of what really intrigues me, because here you are sitting at, I don't know, what are you, 24 now? And,
46 a week and a half ago.
Yeah, I'll be 64 in, gosh, what is it? 24 days. 24 days, I'll be 64. So, but that, it's cool.
How old do you feel?
Inside, quite a bit younger, quite a bit younger. Back to that.
Yeah.
In the pre-pregnancy delivery, I see you with women who are obviously quite far along. Well, what's the deal there? What are you up to there?
Great question. We work with a lot of like the local birthing community with OBs and midwives and doulas and people who are preparing the mom and the family for for birth and labor. And when we adjust them, some people come in with, let's say pain or discomfort, but a lot of people come in just for, I just want to get ready for birth. And so we educate them on balancing the whole body, right? Brain body connection, really connecting to not only your body, but also your breath and the womb and your baby. Yeah. And so we work from, like I said, like the toes to the top of the head, and balancing. So, if this is your pelvis, right, the baby is going to come out this way. And if it's like this, that's not ideal. That's not ideal. Baby's not going to go in the proper head down position or on the right side, potentially, or the correct side. And so, we're looking at the pelvis as a whole. We're looking at the back, and we're looking at the front, and we're looking at the middle, and then that chain all the way up to the head. And, removing what is called subluxation. Subluxation is the fancy word for the diagnosis, right? I think it's really interesting because I really love Latin root word meanings, and subluxation means expression below the light.
Cool.
Lux.
Say that again.
Sub is below, lux is light, and ation is expression. So subluxation is expression below the light. And so as a chiropractor, our job is to find subluxation, areas where you're disconnected from yourself, from your innate intelligence, from your nervous system, and reconnect you to it. And so with that, we have expression of that innate intelligence through the body. And most of the time when that's connected, all things are beautiful and happen the way they're supposed to. There's extra hormones in the woman's body, and there's double the blood volume, and there's extra weight and ergonomics. And, we have evolved thousands of years to sit in front of a shiny box with blinking lights. and that is, can take a toll on us, biologically, that's not what we were meant to do. And so we train them and help them with certain things they can do at home, and how certain ways they can sleep to help, and what, ergonomics at work or life or whatever they may do with their time throughout the day. So it's a full encompassing thing. And then also get them ready for the birth, or any resources that they need for the birth, or to help them, such as a doula or a lactation consultant, or, educating them on, that first week. People are like, well, how soon can I come in with the baby? And what we educate on is, as soon as possible. I'm talking days, first week is ideal. And then, although I wish that we had the bandwidth to go to people's homes, so they didn't have to leave, but it's a lot of time, a lot of travel. And we just don't have the bandwidth to do that.
Yeah. I wouldn't doubt it.
It's very, very important to get that brain body connection from day one, because they're learning their muscle memory and all the things, often slightly disconnected. I mean, they're beautiful, perfect beings, but could they be a little more relaxed? Could their digestion be a little bit better? Let's see what mom's eating and how baby's reacting to some of the foods potentially. Because in those first days, week, months, their digestive system is very delicate. And some of those bigger proteins, they're not ready to break down. And so that is things that can cause colic, digestive upset, fussiness, burps, puking, all sorts of different things.
All the beautiful things that happen when you have a baby. For the sake of the audience, without giving, everything away, but, roughly would it cost for a woman to come in there? Let's just say, take a number, 3 times. I mean, what do you think without getting, maybe just roughly, what would you think it'd cost?
Well, so it's complicated because we have so many different ways for them to pay, right? We have an insurance model where insurance covers certain plans, certain situations.
Sure.
And then we have cash plans, we have family plans. But I think if they, for them, for their initial visit, I mean, often I want to see mom with baby, just because that whole process, kind of putting mom back together so that she can be the best connected while she's nursing and learning how to be a mother. So it's different for everybody, but let's say bringing a newborn, are you talking like a mother or a newborn? A
Just
lot of moms,
not a
it's like
newborn.
they're
Let's
newborn,
say
yeah.
one time baby comes in and, obviously there's insurance and all that sort of stuff. And, but, just, it's always nice, everybody, they always say,
Couple
oh, nothing's
$100.
about a couple $100. Okay. That's not
Yeah,
much.
I would say
That's not much.
if you were paying cash out of pocket
Yeah.
for an initial visit, 3, 4, 5 adjustments, that would, but ideally, we would see that baby throughout their first year. But a lot of times, we don't love the insurance model, but if there's a birthing woman that's going to meet their deductible and they have benefits, then we're going to let them use them, because we know how expensive healthcare is. And then we also have programs, we have a nonprofit as well. So we try to help people that can't afford it in certain situations.
And is that nonprofit funded through yourself and others who want to contribute to it? Or are you outside saying, hey, make a contribution to our nonprofit, which I presume you would?
Yeah, we need to be better at that, but it's just more of like a donation-based care.
Sure.
So that we, yeah.
Okay.
We could be asking for contributions like to cover people's care like 100%. I just currently don't have the bandwidth.
You had such a diverse younger life that I loved it. And I'll just jump on some of them, get out of college, go down to Costa Rica, work for 7 years. And I'm just moving through a few of these, a marketing and Spanish major. And then you jump out and you jump into what career?
So fresh out of college, I came back from living in Costa Rica, and I was fluent in Spanish. And so I was, and I had my degree in marketing and experience, and I kind of got sucked into the mortgage industry. So sales, 100% commission sales situation, with a family member who was doing it. And she's like, you speak Spanish, I need you. And I was like, I don't really know that much about mortgages. What exactly is a mortgage? And I'm like, how did I graduate from business school and not fully even understand what a mortgage was? It's like,
well, you're not alone.
Me. But I quickly learned. It's not hard to learn, and started utilizing my language skills with that industry. And as we know, that was a booming industry at that time.
Sure.
In 2001. And I pretty much got sucked in. I said I did that Jolly Rancher tour throughout the whole country, and I had already traveled.
Yeah, you were hitting. Didn't you hit, like, I did 48 states of selling in my life. You went to 34 countries. Now I'm presuming that was more for other reasons, but were you selling quite a bit about the country with your with the Jolly Rancher?
Yeah, I covered, I don't know how, I haven't done the state count, but we covered a majority of east, west, middle to southern. We didn't really do any of the north, other than like Oregon and Seattle on the West Coast. So I've covered a big majority of the US. There's still some outliers. I haven't been to Alaska on my list. And I've been to part of New England, but then like Minnesota and the Dakotas I haven't touched. So, but other than that, so I got to do all of Central America, and then came back, covered all of the US. And then I was like, San Francisco's calling my name. And so I had gotten sucked into that mortgage industry, and I was like, I'm moving to San Francisco. And I worked for Wells Fargo, and they were like, well, you can transfer. And I was like, oh, well, that's a good idea, because I know it's an expensive city, and I have money, but not a lot. And I need a job, and I need insurance, because I'm about to be booted from my parents because I was 24 and I am diabetic. So I couldn't just get insurance on my own. So I had to work for a corporation that would give me insurance so I could have insulin. I started, I had 2 job offers without an interview because of the Spanish in San Francisco. And so I kind of picked one of those and hit the ground running in San Francisco. So I did that. I was in that industry for 12 years.
I read that. That's no short stint.
Yeah. Yeah, it
So
was
you
it was
knew it.
awesome. I wouldn't change it for the world until I just was like, I think I was like there was a dinner conversation where they're like, we were talking about, I don't like your career and your life, and I was like realizing like, okay, I'm in my like late 20s, early 30s, and I'm like, God, I can't. What am I going to do? Like, if I work till I'm 65, which that's not the plan currently, but I was like, I don't want to be a mortgage broker for another 30 years.
Sounds a
I
little
was like,
boring.
yeah, I was like, this is just sucking my soul. And while I was making great money and learning all about finances and wealth and real estate, and the hustle and all that I just was like, this is not why I was put on this earth, was to shuffle paper around Wall Street.
Yeah. Well, we come to that
And
sometimes. We just have to. We have to shift. We have to shift. It's just somebody once asked me, why did you go out and move to Seattle and have your own business and run around like a chicken without a head? And I said, it's the way the big guy made me. That's just what happened. That's just the way the big guy made me. And I had, to some extent, many times wish I didn't have the drive. There's people, one of the reasons I do this show is because I find it so fascinating meeting people who didn't do what I did. That's part of the whole show is, meeting someone who's, you're a chiropractor. And I'm like, what? Like, why?
Yeah.
What would make you want to? We don't go there. You had this big turn. And I know you worked your butt off in a lot of different jobs. And the one that I found pretty cool was this, is it a Dorn design? Was that the name of it? Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that.
I didn't realize that was still out in the World Wide Web. It was while I was in the mortgage industry, because that wasn't passion. I made bags. I started a business making bags for people with diabetes to carry around your diabetes supplies, because I was like, this is, you got to have all this stuff and it's just not cute. Like, you got to have all this bulkiness and like people, there's a better way, and I was like, I'm going to make bags for people with diabetes to just kind of be more fashionable. They be purses and, little clutches, and then like a messenger bag for men as well. And so for men or people who want to carry messenger bags. And so, I started that business, and I worked with, it was kind of just like a side hustle for many years. And, I had some meetings with Johnson & Johnson, and then like, I sold to Medtronic Canada, and, it was more like the onesie twosies, for a long time, just like shipping, online orders. And I had, I used to do all the shipping, and then I hired some of my family to do it. And, it just was, it was good. I learned a lot. I helped a lot of people with that. And then I eventually sold that business to one of my best friends, who was ready to take something on.
So here's this mortgage broker. Okay. Running around San Francisco. Cool, hip, San Francisco gal, yeah, woohoo,
I was cool.
Yeah, I know. Weren't we all? But, and now it strikes you, I'm going to sell bags, these little bags. And then just for the audience, like, how does that even start? Like, you go out and buy you buy a bag and steal a zipper and put another zipper on it, or what do you do?
Yeah. Well, it was in bed, like the idea came when, I had the business background, right? I lived in Costa Rica. It was actually 7 months, not 7 years. But then I came back, did the tour around the US, and I had a lot of time on the road with the crew that we had. And that's when I started penciling it out on napkin and like, this is something I got to do. And I came back from the tour, and I was like, how do I make bags? Like, who does this? And they're like, well, you just got to do it in China. And then, I had a couple conversations with people, and they're like, oh, hey, I know a guy. So I set up a meeting with him. And
I know a guy.
A bad guy.
Guy.
He kind of was more like promo bags, and he was like a promo person.
I know them.
And so I had a meeting with him. Then I moved to San Francisco, and then I think I did a first small run with that guy in Colorado, moved to San Francisco, met some bag people in that business. And so then I got connected with with people who work with China and make bags. So then I started getting, like 1,000 purses at a time. And then I got to get a storage unit. And then you got to, then you have the website, and then you have to have search engine optimization, and then you have to have shipping. And then, and then you're like, and then you got to keep building and moving, new, and then you got to have trade shows, and, it's just one thing after another. And then you figure it out.
Yeah, I know for us, it was trade shows. Mamma mia. We probably spent, $250,000 a year on trade shows. And, trade shows, it's almost like, do you even know if they're worth the time? And we came to the conclusion that we had been a big enough, not big enough, but we were a brand within the specialty coffee industry. And we thought, well, at least our name is sitting up there. And what we learned is a lot of our competitors would only go to like half the shows because they saved money. So what we did is I was like, no, we're going to be at every show that's coffee related. Our name's going to be sticking there, and people will recognize that, whatever ABC bag is not. And, and
brand awareness.
Yeah, you quietly, and I never was one to bash a competitor or anything like that. But, I would just be like, oh, so who are you purchasing from now? And they'd be like, oh, ABC. And I said, yeah, I didn't see them with a booth around here. And they've been to quite a few shows, and
they don't see them working.
Yeah. What are they doing? But you've been a hustler, and now on your LinkedIn, it shows there that you're continuing to sell some of those bags. Are you still doing it at all?
Oh, no, I obviously haven't been on there. No.
Misrepresentation, would you say?
I sold it. Yeah, I guess. I sold that business in probably 2011 or something like that. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So, and it no longer exists, but that's okay.
So we haven't.
I learned a lot.
We're not done our zigs and zags here for you. You went to, and you have to let me apologize here. You went to, well, anyway, what school did you go to?
I went to undergrad at Florida State, Fort Collins.
Yeah.
And then graduate chiropractic school was at Life West.
Okay.
In Hayward, California.
So then you took this big turn, and now all of a sudden you've decided, I'm going to go on my own, which again in your life, you've worked your butt off all your life. I read that. Now you go, I'm going to do what I'm doing now. And now once again, like the bags, how the hell did you start that?
With chiropractic, there was the mortgage crash and like the soul sucking piece. And I was just like, I got to do something different. The mortgage, I had just bought a house in San Francisco, and I was doing well. And I was like, this is, this is great. I'm living the life. I'm traveling. I'm eating out, all the fancy sushi restaurants, and just, I loved that. Just my 20s and early 30s in San Francisco. It was quite an experience. And and then the crash happened, and I was like, oh, okay. So my entire industry's gone. And
that'll make you change your job. That'll force you to that'll make you change. I'm stumbling over you. But the old business evaporating, that'll force a change in your career. That'll make you take a good look at it.
Or it was in that instant, after Wells Fargo, I got laid off, then I was at Washington Mutual. That's when the crash happened. That they disappeared, and I got hired by Bear Stearns a week later. And then I had like a job offer, FedEx. And I was like, okay, cool. I got a job. This is cool. Something new. And then like, I called my new manager, and he's like, I got to let you know that we have a hiring freeze. And I'm like, well, I just got an offer letter. And he's like, you did? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, I don't think that's null and void. And I was like, oh, okay. Shit.
Yeah. Glad I didn't show up.
Can you make sure? And he's like, I'm sure. I'm like, ooh, okay. And then like a week later, Bear Stearns was gone. Like I remember that.
I remember that. They were just falling like flies. All of them.
Like,
I remember.
Okay. And yeah, so it was like, all right. Well, I have sales experience. I can do that. I'm passionate about the environment. I can do that. I always wanted to help. And then I had experience in the diabetes industry. I'm like, I'm not into pharma, but I'm into helping people.
Boy, we got a gal who's, this part of what I love is this moving around and finding a passion. Now you've identified it, but you're still just one person, I guess, and maybe with the support of your husband. But how did that go from, I don't know, from 0 to A to B to C?
Well, and I think it's important to talk about that switch, or like how that switch turned on, because I know that you, like, what your audience, and knowing I'm a huge, and somebody along the way told me to make a list. Like, I'm like, I don't know what I want to do. I want to be, and they're like, just write down what you know. You don't need to know everything, but just write down what you do know you want. And so I had, throughout, when in the chiropractic or in the mortgage world, I was real stressed out, right? I wouldn't use a headset because they suck for the phone. So I was like constantly like this, with the phone, and like, where's the phone docs? And then I got a realtor calling me, and I got the borrowers, and I got like the rates wrong, and the title company, and it's just constant, like,
oh yeah, I know the deal.
And yeah. And so I was like, damn, like I would be sitting at my desk, like stabbing pens, because I was like numb from tension. And so I was like, okay, I need to. So I was like, I went to the YA, and there was like yoga classes. I'm like, okay. And so I started in the yoga world, and then I had somebody like put a meditation thing on my front doorstep. I'm like, that's a sign I'm going to go to meditation. And I would get massages, and I'm like, I still the next day I was like that, and I'm like, I need deeper work. And my dad had brought me, when I was a dancer growing up, to a chiropractor. And I had this like amazing experience where I walked in, and I was like, I don't quite know. My dad's like, she'll fix you up, and I had a jammed hip, and I could not walk. I was like shuffling in, and she did one adjustment, and I just was like, what in the hell was that? Like, and I just walked out, and I was like, that was insane. How do you do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember like seeing the diploma on her wall, and I was like, that's wow. And my dad's like, I know, she's great, and I was like, okay. So I had only gone a few times as an injured dancer. And, it wasn't I wasn't going as like a wellness thing quite yet. And so when I fast forward, and when I'm in just chronic stress mode, I was like, I need deeper work that's going to like help me with this. And so somebody referred me to this great chiropractor in San Francisco, and I started going, and I was like, oh my God. Like, it was like the first time I could relax deeply. And wow. I was like, this feeling is like, everybody needs to feel this feeling of like freedom, of relaxation, of, getting out of that hamster wheel of the sympathetic fight or flight, go, hustle, drive, money, blah, 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 bills. And I was just like, oh my God, it's amazing. So I refer to like 28, 30 people to my chiropractor. I'm like, anybody, I'd be like, you need to go see the chiropractor. If you've never gone, trust me, it's amazing. So I kept talking about it. The mortgage crash happened. I had 5 job offers. The recession happened. All turned to hiring freezes. Literally, like I was starting to talk about, like mortgage industry, 2 different jobs, gone. I had a pharma job. I didn't take it like the second they'd offered it to me. So they pulled it. They're like, you don't want it bad enough. I'm like, okay, I don't. You're right. So, and then I had 2 solar sales jobs that I was like, okay, I'm going to sell solar. And both of them disappeared. I'm like, I got a big mortgage. I got no job. I'm like, this is stressful. I'm going to go eat, pray, love. My sisters were living in South Korea teaching English, and I met them in India, and we did a 6-week yoga teacher training.
Cool.
So I did a little Asian tour, and it was literally the eat, pray, love. And I came back, and I was like, okay, I'm going to start a yoga studio with like a mani-pedi spa juice bar in San Francisco. Oh, and then I was like, everybody will like, because like that's something I would love. I want to get a mani-pedi, have a mimosa after yoga, and then have my green juice. And then I was like, the last thing San Francisco needs is another yoga studio.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, and those aren't totally lucrative. So I was like, okay, well, I know I want to make a decent amount of money. I know I want to be passionate about what I do. I know that I know how to hustle, and I know that I don't want a micromanager. And I want freedom of my time. And I want to like help or change people or just be passionate. And so those were I was like, okay, well, what fits into that? And I was having a conversation with one of my sisters. I have two younger sisters. And she was like, Jen, why don't you be a chiropractor? You're always talking about it. You love it. She's like, one of my friends, sister just graduated. She lives in the Bay Area. There's a school right there. And I was like,
bingo.
Oh my God. And I like, literally, I was like, yeah, aha moment. I help her heal people. I can make a decent amount of money. By the way, I had just done my chiropractor's mortgage. So I saw his income documentation and I was like, I could do that.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a huge range. Obviously with chiropractic, there's a huge range.
I can't imagine.
It's there, it depends on what you do and who you are. And so, I was like, I am so passionate about it. I was like, how long do I have to go to school? 4 years? I don't care. I'm going to do it. I'm like, that's what I have to do to like help people and like make a difference in this planet. 4 years is like nothing.
No, it isn't. And that's something that kids need to know. And that is that stuff takes time, and time is not as long as you think when you're young. Somebody says, a year. They're like, oh my God. And as you get a little older and you start to really appreciate what it takes to do something, it takes time. So now to fast forward here, now you're in Boise. Now, just between you and me, I was raised in Philly. Okay. I didn't know what Boise was when I was 25. It was just, what? So now here's this, hip rock and roll girl in San Francisco, obviously a shuffler. I love listening to you. Just the speed of your voice is just, awesome. Throw you West Coast, East Coast, you'd kick it. So now,
my husband always calls me East Coast.
Yeah.
East Coast.
Yeah, I know, like really fast. What are you going to do?
But I get it.
What do you want to do? You want to buy something or not? If you're going to order a bagel, you go any slower, you're going to go backwards. So anyway, so now you find a way to get yourself out to Boise, which, why the hell did that happen?
That's a great question. I met my husband in chiropractic school, and his daughter moved to Boise while we were in school, and so he's like, I'm moving to Boise, like no questions asked. I'm going to be with my daughter as soon as I graduate, and he had to be away from her during school, and he would spend time with her as much as humanly possible throughout school, but she lived in another state, so it's shuffling back and forth, and he's like, there's nothing more important to me than living next to her. And I was like, I value that. That means you are a quality human, and have fun.
You're going to a non-quality city. I mean, I will leave you.
I was like, I'm a city girl, and but I was like, he's an awesome human. I truly loved him, and I was like, am I really going to pick like a city over love? Yeah. And so my friends were like, just try it. You can keep your house here as a backup plan. You can just go and try it. And then, come back if it doesn't work out. And I'm like, okay. But then I was like, all right, I'll do that. And then not thinking like, oh, well, I have to start practice.
Yeah.
I thought, I was like, maybe I'll work for somebody just for a year just to figure it out. And then I was like, I'm not a work for somebody kind of person. I was like, we got to do this. And I knew it was going to last. And so we moved to Boise. It was a very big culture shock for me. I would say I resisted it for at least 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
I was like, but I am truly in love with it. It changed me. It's a great place. It's changed a lot, 10 years now.
Yeah,
and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
The nicest people.
I misspoke. and I said, "Oh, it's a whatever kind of town it is." And I want to apologize to anybody in Boise. I love the place, and I just find it to be so much. I'm just calmer the minute I get there, and so out there to your audience, please visit Boise. It's a cool place. So enough with my introduction.
What you were saying was like being from Philly and San Francisco. You're like Boise, Idaho, and like truly, I get it. And now it's more up and coming, and we just it's secret. Now we're like don't tell me. Don't tell people how cool it is.
I know, because now we bought a house out there, and it was like, whoa, this is not little low cost town out in the middle of nowhere, and it's a gorgeous place. So now you have 19 employees, and if I got that right, that's in about 10 years. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
That's substantial. As a business owner, that's not, you don't just snap your fingers and end up with 19 employees. What'd you do?
So for many years, it was just Kyle and I, and then we had a front desk support or an office support person for a good 6 years, 7 years, something like that. And then it was actually during the pandemic where we had somebody come on as a preceptor. So interns from chiropractic school can come and train with us. And so they couldn't really, the clinics were closed in California, so they couldn't get adjustment hours in clinic. So they're like, can we come and work at your practice and learn? And I was like, absolutely. Like I'm ready to teach people. Like I remember being in school, I wished I had that opportunity to go out and do a preceptorship. I was like, absolutely, come on up. And so we trained students and then we hired them. And it was like, okay, this is clicking. All right, this is great. Oh my gosh, Kyle and I can actually go away from the office and someone's still working.
That's not a bad deal.
This is oh my goodness. Like after many, many, many years. And so then we kind of outgrew our space and we moved literally just across the hall. And then we had another person come to us and say, hey, can I do a preceptorship? And we're like, absolutely. And so now, fast forward, we had another person. Literally most people have just come to us, which is amazing.
It says something about you.
It's like, and like whenever we go out and we try to find them and bring them in, it hasn't always been as smooth as just like, they just show up.
Yeah, well, I think that's always easier. You're not out pushing the ball. They're coming to you. They're coming to you.
Yeah. And it's still happening. And so right now we have 5 doctors. I have an incredible office manager that she's the boss. She runs the show. And that is like the most invaluable piece. We have front desk support. And then we opened up another suite where we support people with 3 different massage therapists and then 2 cranial sacral therapists.
Wow.
We do a lot of that soft tissue fascia work on adults and babies. Because that's like that interconnected web of fascia throughout our body is very vast and important. And we all are trained in it, but we don't have like a full hour with that patient to do that work. So
now, let's just see this. Let's start to wrap this thing up a little.
Yeah.
And so I have 2 questions, and you can answer them sequentially. What would be your advice, and then to younger folks, and then last but not least, why the hell are you doing this thing? So let's start with the first one. What's your advice?
To younger people, I would say, again, make your list. If you don't know what you want to be when you grow up, or you don't know the next move in your career or your life, just make the list of things that you want. Like what I think is important. Like a friend of mine was she was a veterinarian, and like her first week at work, she realized that she had to put animals down on a daily basis. And came home crying every day. And I was like, like when you're thinking about your career, shadowing that career, talking to people in that career, interviewing people in that career, thinking about how much money do you want to make and how do you want to make it? I've never had that steady paycheck. I've never had a paid vacation. where it was like, oh yeah, I got 2 weeks off. I mean, now, like I said, the office is working when we're gone, which is a godsend. But just knowing what you want your schedule to like. Do you have a comfort zone that needs to be like for your personality, or are you ready to go hustle and grind pavement and get out there and get out of your comfort zone? Because just knowing where you're at and what, where you're most comfortable. And then just truly do what you're passionate about, if possible. And if you're not doing what you're passionate about, do it on the side so that you're still fulfilling that need in your life. I think it's important that they're like, oh, you want to be a doctor? Cool. We'll know that like doctors, or nurses, I was like telling my daughter, I was like, just make sure in nursing, if you want to do that, that's awesome. Just keep in mind that, a lot of it's 12 hours on your feet, no, like very little to no breaks. If you're working in the NICU, you're going to work with sick and dying babies, or, just keeping in mind, like what that looks like, the good, the bad, the ugly, so make the list. Like, I want to make X amount of money. I want to work this many hours. I want to work remote. I don't want to work remote. I want to work with people. I'm passionate about X, and literally write down everything and be very specific. So when you're considering things, you're like, oh, did this fit all of these? And that's what looks for me,
Mm-hmm. Not trying to be a weirdo here, but good God, you sound like so many girls that I knew, around me in high school and college, these, hard, I shouldn't say they're everywhere, but, fast talk. Here's what they want to do. I'm going to do this, a lot of bluster, and cool, cool. Of course, I was intimidated by them at a young age. I'm like, oof, this is the girl. I'm not ready for her. I remember one was Vivi Bonacorso. I always love that name. You ever meet Vivi Bonacorso? You know that like, oh, Vivi's bringing it. So now get back to the final question. So
yeah,
got all this bouncing around. So why the hell did you do this? When it was like something in your early life that struck you, or just why? Why?
I don't settle. I think that's truly the driving force. Like you said, sometimes it's like that ambition. Sometimes you're like, yeah, I wish this would chill out.
Yeah. Here.
I have that burning desire to not live an average life. And so I truly, you can say I visualized it, I manifested it, I hustled it. And I just used my strengths and my passion to guide the way. And now I've been doing it and I'm kind of like, okay, do I just keep doing this for 10 years and that's it? Or what's next? Because it's been a long time.
One of the things I did when I was 53, I started to make a good income in my business. And I still had all this sense of like, I didn't know what the hell to do. I had the ability to not work as much. And I was talking to this, I went to a life coach and she walked me through, and her whole idea was to create this portfolio life. And so one of the things I had was I would say, I go to the gym every day for about an hour. And she goes, just an hour? Why is that? And I said, well, I don't want to be like people thinking I'm just this like rich jerk boss and, all this. And she's like, I don't get it. You own the business. And I'm like, yeah. And then she says to me this, have you ever asked anybody at your business if they'd think that about you? And I was like, well, no. And she says, well, okay, so there's all this dancing around in your head and you're making all these presumptions about everybody else, but you don't know. So my job over the next 2 weeks was to talk to the 4 people who were the instrumental people in my business. And every one of them is like, no, dude, you busted your butt. Go chill, go to the gym. We don't care. And it opened my eyes to like, wow, I don't have to go as hard. Now the problem was not going as hard. And
yeah,
I'm really trying in doing this to go, this is enough. Calm down. We are going to sell you one of our mugs. They're only $20. We think it's a good deal. But listen, don't let me ramble on about me. Jenn.
Well, that's funny because I my husband and I just went to Mexico and we travel a lot. And I'm like, I don't want to post. I'm not going to post about it because I'm going to see like my patients or my staff are going to be like, oh, all they do, they just take off and travel. And you're like, is that inspiring? Or are they like, yeah, because they charge too much, or they're just, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I busted my ass to get to this point in my
bullshit.
life.
It motivates people. It does for me.
Yeah.
People want a lifestyle, and you're able to run a business, do well, and relax with your family. And that's such a beautiful message. It really is. And when, it's hard for folks like us to be proud of what we did sometimes because we always think there's another thing. But no, take a moment before I go. I want you to take a deep breath. Virtual eyes. Back up. Be in touch with your creator. Now, on our last one. Say Mark Howley's great. And the show's done.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Get one last time. Your name and your business.
Dr. Jennifer Dorn with Bodo Chiropractic.
Great. Go see her. She works with my daughter. She's awesome. See you later.
Thank you. Ciao.
You're very welcome. Bye. Thank you for listening to The Mark Howley Show. If you found this story as intriguing as we did, give us a like, share the episode, and subscribe. For other stories like this one, you can check us out wherever you stream your content at The Mark Howley Show. New episodes every other Friday. Adios.